listen for a brand new show. Scooby Doo is here again, away we go.
Scooby Doo is running from a spooky ghost.
Shaggy isn't doing what he does the most. Hey, come on, get involved till the mystery is solved.
Hang around for Scooby Doo.
Hey, come on, get involved till the mystery is solved.
Hang around for Scooby Doo. That's my pal. Scooby Dooby Doo.
Hello, Scooby Doo fans! Welcome to my Season 1, Episode 11 review of the Scooby Doo Show. So last time I continued my reviews of the Scooby Doo Show with my review of Season 1, Episode 10 of the Scooby Doo Show. I hope you guys enjoyed that. But of course today, I'll be covering Season 1, Episode 11 of the Scooby Doo Show, titled A Bum Steer for Scooby, which was released on November 20th, 1976. The short synopsis of the episode is, Mystery Inc. is on their way to a cattle ranch to visit Daphne's Uncle Matt. But things go awry when a phantom bull and a ghostly Indian show up. Things get worse when Uncle Matt goes missing and the gang must go up into the cliffs to solve this western caper. So as per usual, I'll be watching Season 1, Episode 11 of the Scooby Doo Show on the Scooby Doo Dynamite Hour, the complete series DVD. This DVD has every episode of Season 1 of the Scooby Doo Show, as well as every episode of Dynamite. Unfortunately, it's the only physical media release of Season 1 of the Scooby Doo Show, so if you want any sort of physical copy of Season 1 of the Scooby Doo Show, this is your only option. But if you also like Dynamite, this DVD will also be up your alley as well. Now, as far as this episode's reception is concerned, I don't really know how Scooby Doo fans feel about this particular episode. Even though it has a relative of one of the gang members, it still is not an episode that's, talked about at all, really, in the Scooby Doo community, so I don't know which side of the fence Scooby Doo fans stand on. I don't know if they consider it good, or bad, or average. So I guess there's only one way to find out what way I sway in. So let's take a look at the episode to see whether I think it is a good or bad episode of the Scooby Doo Show. The episode begins with Fred, Daphne, Velma, Shaggy, and Scooby driving through a desert to Daphne's Uncle Matt's ranch. Suddenly, a flying ghost bull streaks across the sky, forcing the Mystery Machine to swerve off the road and drive through the desert. They eventually lose the bull and arrive at the ranch, telling Uncle Matt about the ghost bull. A local rancher named Sam Farron declares that many cattle have been going missing from the ranch. Uncle Matt even talks about a flying bull named Tamuka that guards the burial grounds of an ancient cliff-dwelling tribe. Scooby and Shaggy are spooked by a ghostly sheep, but realize it is only the ranch's cook, Lenny. A car pulls up and a ranch foreman informs everybody that more cattle have been going missing. Remember this guy for later, because there's an inconsistency with Uncle Matt's foreman that doesn't really get explained. Shaggy, Scooby, and Uncle Matt head off to the sheriff's station, while Velma, Daphne, and Fred decide to investigate the pasture where the cows went missing. While driving into town, Shaggy, Scooby, and Uncle Matt drive through a tunnel in a cliff, and when they exit, Uncle Matt is gone. Calling for him, they receive no response, so Shaggy gets at the wheel and turns around to return to the ranch and tell the others. Fred and the girls find the fence was cut open with wire cutters and there was no tracks anywhere. The ghost bull then arrives and the three of them flee. Shaggy and Scooby also encounter the ghost bull and race back to the ranch, which is deserted. Shaggy and Scooby go looking, and after a close call with a real mad bull in the barn, Fred, Daphne, and Velma arrive, and Shaggy and Scooby hurriedly inform the gang about Uncle Matt. So the five of them decide to venture into the desert to where they first saw the flying bull, much to Scooby and Shaggy's chagrin. A little way out on the dirt road, the gang find tire tracks and follow them to an Indian burial ground built into a cliff. They follow another set of tire tracks to a hidden pasture full of the stolen cows, but a ranch foreman arrives and tells them to scat and not to trespass as they mistakenly happen upon Sam Farron's ranch. So they head back to the burial grounds, with Fred, Daphne, and Velma entering the burial grounds while Shaggy and Scooby get scared as they are standing guard outside. Inside, Velma loses her glasses while looking, and they stumble upon a skeleton. Back outside, a ghostly Indian appears at the top of a ledge on the burial grounds performing a ritual dance, and this is what frightens Shaggy and Scooby to run inside and tell the gang as the skeleton crumbles into pieces. For some reason, Velma says that she heard Daphne scream, which is not the case because Daphne only gasped, she didn't scream. Tamuka appears inside and the gang flees into the burial grounds and gets separated. Shaggy and Scoob run into the Indian ghost and they hide, prompting the Indian ghost to give up and retreat, while Velma, Fred, and Daphne get sealed in another room. I really love this first chase scene with Shaggy, Scooby, and the ghostly medicine man. I really love Shaggy and Scooby outwitting the villain and just the comedic timing of the villain and how he gets more and more pissed off as he can't find them and eventually just gives up and runs the fuck out of the room. It's just really funny, and I have a blast watching it.
Make sure there are no ghosts in here, Scoob. Take a look around.
Okay.
Oh, no! Zoinks! It's the creepy chiefy! Come on, Scoob! Like all clear, Scoob.
Do something.
I'm trying to do something, Scoob. Trouble is, your ankle bone's connected to your neck bone.
Shaggy and Scooby happen upon a nest and an eagle appears and defends her nest and they run away. Fred, Velma, and Daphne keep escaping after short encounters with the Indian. Scooby and Shaggy also get chased by the Indian ghost and they happen upon an exit. While Velma, Fred, and Daphne find a robotic bull suit with helicopter rotors and they deduce how there is a flying bull around. I also really enjoyed the second chase scene. I love how comedic it is. It's just as funny as the first one. Shaggy and Scooby pretending to be one of the, you know, many faces on the statue and trying to hide from the Indian ghosts or the medicine man, whatever you want to call him, and then the medicine man gets, you know, shakes his maraca and gets really pissed once he notices them, and Shaggy and Scooby bolt the fuck out of there. And it's just it's a fun little short comedic scene. I do like the first chase scene more, but this is also quite funny as well.
It's only a totem pole, Scooby. Like those horrible faces keep evil spirits away.
They do?
Oh, like we gotta find a place to hide, Scoob. Uh-oh, time to split, Mooka.
They watch as the Indian ghost hops into the bull, about to take off. The three of them set a trap and it succeeds, and then they find Shaggy and Scooby in a cowhide. It turns out the cowhide is actually a clue. The cow rustlers hid inside the cowhide to steal the cattle and used Tamuka as the reason the cows were disappearing. So Shaggy and Scooby get into the cowhide and go into the herd to see who is stealing them and where they're being taken. Shaggy and Scooby get taken up into a truck, up into the mountains, and Fred, Daphne, and Velma follow and try to save them, but they are captured by the foreman that told them to scat at that hidden pasture earlier. But thankfully, Uncle Matt arrives and traps the foreman. In the car, we see the captured Indian ghost, and Uncle Matt explains he was yanked off by a rope in the tunnel, and that the cow rustler would brand a new brand over the old changing shape to make it look like the cows weren't stolen. They unmask the Indian ghost as Lenny the Cook. And then obviously we have Sam Farron's foreman, who wasn't in costume and was suspicious from the start. And the man in the cow suit is Sam Farron. So this actually brings up an inconsistency that I alluded to earlier in the episode, which was, of course, Uncle Matt's foreman. Now, Uncle Matt's foreman, if you remember, informed them about the cows going missing, and Sam Farron and Lenny the Cook went with him. But we never find out what happened to him and his fate. So there's only really three possibilities with him. Either he was part of the scheme and was a villain that wasn't caught, which is possible because it reminds me, like the last episode, how Sally was kind of a gray area. We didn't know whether she was a villain or not. The second possibility is, that he was captured along with Uncle Matt and that both of them were able to escape and he just went back to the ranch and we didn't see him. And then there's a third dark possibility where he might have been killed. I don't think that's the case, but it still is a possibility. More than likely, I like to believe that the foreman was probably captured with Uncle Matt, and they both somehow found a way to escape, because we never see how Uncle Matt escaped. We don't know where he was taken. We don't know where the foreman, went either. So there's a lot of off-screen stuff that we don't know, but presumably I like to think Uncle Matt and the foreman were both trapped in the same place, and they were both able to find a way out, and the foreman went back to the ranch while Uncle Matt took care of the situation of capturing them and getting the sheriff. That's what I think, but I am curious what you guys think about, the foreman. Like, what do you think happened to this foreman that was only in one scene of the episode? Do you think he was in on the scheme? Do you think he was captured like Uncle Matt and escaped? Or do you think he might have possibly been killed off screen? Anyways, Fred, Daphne, and Velma then mistake a real cow for Scooby and Shaggy, but Scooby and Shaggy managed to arrive and tell the rest of the gang that they were eating carrots while they were in the cowhide costume the whole time, as the episode ends with them eating carrots and Scooby saying his famous catchphrase. I'm going to give Season 1, Episode 11 of the Scooby Doo Show 2 stars out of 5. Yeah, this was another below average episode. I really wasn't too fond of this episode. I'll get into my reasons why. I did like seeing a family member of the gang, obviously, but that was not strong enough, at least, to elevate this episode to a level to where it was good, because some of the elements surrounding that just were not good enough. So before I get into the negatives of the episode and what holds this episode back and makes it such a below average episode, I'll get into my positives first and what I liked about the episode. So starting with the positives, my first one is that I think Fred was a good leader in this episode. I think he did take the sole leadership role in this episode. He fulfilled his usual role, told everyone where they needed to go, and he helped capture one of the villains, the ghostly medicine man, the Indian ghost, whatever you want to call him, when he went into the Temuka helicopter robotic bull, and he was able to tie it down. He was able to help capture at least that villain, so that was good. And technically, he also did, he swung the rope onto Sam Farron in the cowhide costume, so technically he did catch both villains on his feet. They weren't inventive traps, they were more so just Fred thinking on his feet and just kind of trapping them with whatever materials were available. He tied one down and kept him, stuck, and the other one, like, he caught the villain by lassoing him, essentially. Then we have Daphne. Daphne was quite good in this episode. This was actually a good episode for her because it gave her a personal aspect to the mystery since we got to meet her uncle. I think it was awesome getting to see her have a personal stake in the mystery. I did think her relationship with her Uncle Matt was cool. I don't think they fleshed it out as well as some other relatives, but I feel like we got enough to where I think their relationship was kind of sweet. Like, I did enjoy, the moments we got with them. I think it's because Uncle Matt got kidnapped like early in the episode, and he didn't come back till towards the end, that he didn't really get to be a big part of it. But to be fair, that is good motivation for Daphne to want to solve the mystery even more. Daphne didn't show much of a sense of urgency when she heard her uncle was kidnapped, which was a bit weird. It reminds me of when Shaggy, heard that his uncle was trapped, or kidnapped by the villain, and was hesitant at first, but was happy that he was fine. And I feel like that was the same way with Daphne in this episode, where she didn't really show much of a sense of urgency to go save her uncle. I mean, obviously she didn't know where he was, but neither did Shaggy in the episode, and Daphne didn't really seem to have that sense of urgency of, we need to solve this mystery so I can find my uncle. But she was happy and relieved to see that her uncle was okay when he did come at the end. So it's just a little quibble I have with, with Daphne's character. But still, that doesn't detract from it. I do think seeing her relationship with her uncle was great. I liked seeing her having a personal stake in the mystery. I just think it was a bit disappointing that she didn't really show more concern for her uncle's safety when she realized that he was kidnapped by the villains and she doesn't know where he is. It didn't feel like she had much of a sense of urgency, and it kind of reminded me of when I quibbled about Shaggy and Scared-A-Lot and Camelot and how he didn't really have that sense of urgency either when his uncle was kidnapped, but they both kind of showed relief and was happy to see their respective uncles when they found them and freed them. In the case of Shaggy's uncle, whereas in the case of Uncle Matt freed himself and showed that he was okay. So, yeah, I thought Daphne was good in the episode, besides, tangent aside on, her not showing much of a sense of urgency. Her having a personal aspect or a personal stake in the mystery, and her relationship with her uncle was great. I did like Uncle Matt. I think he was a cool little character, and it was fun getting to know him, and I can't wait to see more relatives of not just Daphne, but the other gang members as well. Then, of course, we have Shaggy and Scooby. Shaggy and Scooby were their usual funny, cowardly selves. They didn't really do much out of their respective roles. I think that's fine. I think they had enough going for them. I think they had a couple great humorous moments with the villain. I think they really bounced off the villain well. I especially laughed when Sam Farron pushed them in the cowhide costume onto the truck. I think that was kind of funny. Shaggy and Scooby were quite funny in the cowhide costume. They were quite funny with the ghostly medicine man. They played off the villain well with their usual antics, and they were quite funny. And they were a little bit proactive because when Uncle Matt vanished, they kind of showed that sense of urgency of, we got to tell the rest of the gang what just happened. Uncle Matt's gone. This ghostly, Tamuka the ghostly bull, just attacked us again. We got to get the gang and figure out what's going on. So I did like that Shaggy and Scooby kind of, realized that there was a situation where Daphne's uncle is gone and they have to go back to the gang and figure out what's going on. And then when the gang were gone temporarily, Shaggy and Scooby try to find them and are worried about, their safety. So I did like that aspect. But other than that, they were their usual funny, cowardly selves, and they fulfilled the bare minimum. They had a couple moments outside of that, and overall, I found them quite entertaining and fun in this episode, especially with their dynamics with the villain and in both in the cowhide costume with, when Sam Farron was in his cowhide costume, and with the ghostly medicine man when they were being chased around by him. So both of those times I had a blast with Shaggy and Scooby, and they did show a bit of proactiveness when it felt like everybody was gone and they needed to help find them because they were clearly concerned about their friend's safety as well as their friend's uncle's safety. So I did like that aspect for Shaggy and Scooby. So I actually found one of the main villains of the episode to be quite fun and entertaining, and that, of course, was the ghostly medicine man, or the Indian ghost, whatever you want to call him. So the medicine man, ghost, or the Indian ghost, he was quite fun and entertaining, because of his antics with Shaggy and Scooby. He had a lot of funny, anger, the fact that he was always so angry all the time, every time he couldn't catch them, or Fred, Daphne, and Velma, and just, his mannerisms, his physical comedy, I just found quite fun and entertaining. He didn't, and especially when he got trapped at the end, I just love the little noises he makes when he gets super frustrated. He gets so frustrated all the time whenever Fred, Daphne, Velma, or Shaggy and Scooby elude him or outsmart him, and it's just really funny. He's just really a fun villain in this episode, and it is really funny. Not scary or, creepy in any sense, because he's very similar to kind of like the witch doctors before him. There's nothing really unique about his design, but I do think he is funny and entertaining in this episode, and I had a blast watching him. I think he was an enjoyable enough villain in this episode. And my final positive is that I think there were a good number of suspects in the episode. So you had 3 to 4 suspects in the episode. You had Sam Farron, you had Sam Farron's foreman, you had Lenny the cook, and then you also had Uncle Matt's foreman, if you want to include him, We're not really sure about his fate. Again, like, if you guys want to give your thoughts on what you think maybe happened with him, you know, leave them below. I think he wasn't involved in the scheme. I think he was just, like, kidnapped like Uncle Matt and probably escaped and went back to the ranch. But you never know. It's kind of like with Sally. It's ambiguous. You don't really know what his role is. But, yeah, 3 to 4 suspects because, you know, Uncle Matt's foreman is a little bit iffy because he only had, like, one scene. So, you know, do you really want to count him as a suspect? I'll throw like a bone and say like he could technically count, but whether you want to go 3 or 4, there's still a good number of suspects. You have 2 costume villains. You know, you have the ghostly medicine man and you have the cowhide costume that Sam Farron's in, you know, the talking cow. So having 4 of them or 3 of them, you know, there's a good equal amount of suspicion on each of them to give, you know, the audience enough guesswork to determine which of these suspicious men could be the 2 men in the costumes. But that's all I got for positives for the episode. So I think it's about time we get on to the negatives of the episode and what holds this episode back for me. So starting with the negatives, my first one is that I think Velma was pretty weak in this episode, and I'm sure you guys are tired of me saying that. But it really is true. I just feel like the last couple of episodes haven't really done her any favors character-wise, and she just doesn't have enough moments to really shine. And I just feel like in this episode, she does not fulfill her usual role of piecing together the clues to help solve the mystery. I don't think she's really much of a leader, and I just don't see much of anything else for her in this episode. I'm just not getting enough from her in these past few episodes. So hopefully that'll change, but for this episode, again, Velma was just not on point in this episode. Her characterization was a bit weak for me in this episode. Then we have the other villain of the episode, the other main villain of the episode, which is the Talking Bull, or the Cowhide, you know, the Talking Cow, whatever you want to call it. Scoobypedia lists him as the Talking Bull, so I'm going to just call him that. You know, the costume that Sam Farron's in, the Talking Bull, is uninteresting. The Talking Bull barely makes an appearance. It's mostly the Medicine Man for a majority of the episode, and Temuka, though I wouldn't really consider Temuka a villain. He's more so like a prop or like something the main villains actually use. I wouldn't really consider him a costume villain because he's not a costume. He's just like a robotic bull that's, you know, designed as a helicopter that's controlled by the ghostly medicine man. I would consider the medicine man and the Talking Bull the real costume villains of the episode and the main villains of the episode. And for me, the Talking Bull was uninteresting. He was not scary in the slightest. Nothing was scary about him. He was not fun or entertaining. You know, obviously Shaggy and Scooby made it funny and entertaining, a few scenes with him, but that's because of Shaggy and Scooby's amazing comedic timing. You know, Shaggy and Scooby are always going to deliver on the comedy, so I don't attribute that to him being funny. I attribute it to Shaggy and Scooby being funny, whereas with the Ghostly Medicine Man, I actually do contribute the comedy in those scenes to be the comedy from him, as well as Shaggy and Scooby. So yeah, the Talking Bull, very uninteresting villain, so dull and terrible, like very lazy choice for not really even a villain. Then we have the villains outside of costume, and all 3 of them are uninteresting, terrible villains. So you got Lenny the Cook, you got Sam Farron, and you got Sam Farron's foreman. Lenny the Cook doesn't say jack shit throughout this entire episode. He's like in 1 to 2 scenes. He doesn't say anything. He goes off with Uncle Matt's foreman, and that's about it. We don't see him until he's unmasked. Sam Farron says like 1 or 2 lines, nothing really important. He just clarifies that, you know, that his ranch was hit as well. But obviously, you know, because he's the villain, we learned that was probably just like a cover-up to make it sure he wouldn't look suspicious. But Sam Farron doesn't add anything. It's really Uncle Matt who tells the legend of Temuka and, you know, the ancient cliff-dwelling tribe. Whereas Sam Farron doesn't really provide that backstory. Had he maybe provided that backstory, I maybe would have given him a pass, but he didn't. So And Sam Farron's foreman, I mean, he doesn't even dress up in costume, but outside of costume, he makes it so obvious that he's part of the villain's scheme. He's an a-hole. He, like, brushes off the gang. He says, "You're trespassing. Get off this property." And it's just like, he couldn't make it more obvious. The first time he was annoying about it, like, you know, because they were trespassing, apparently. But the gang were investigating because Daphne's uncle is gone. So I think that warrants them trespassing. Although I guess this is the first time the gang get held accountable for their nosiness and their trespassing. So maybe people might like that. I don't. I think, you know, he made it so obvious the first time, and then the second time around, he made it even more obvious because when the gang when Fred lassoed Sam Farron in the cow costume, he lassoed them until Uncle Matt lassoed him, and it's just like, he made it so obvious outside of costume that he was just this stingy foreman that we don't even know, like, him as a person. He wasn't interesting. Like, he fulfilled his role as a suspect, sure, but he didn't hide the fact that he was a villain. And I'm not surprised that he was one of the villains, because he was so rude to the gang and brushed them off and, you know, was a dick to them every time he encountered them. Like, sometimes, I think in later series that sometimes happens where, or in previous episodes, I think that's happened where you have a stingy man who is rude, but they end up not being the villain. And that could have been cool if that was the case with Sam Farron's foreman, but no, they went the obvious route. And to me, like, it just, you know, he just made it so obvious that he was one of the villains that we don't really get to know this guy either. So all three of them were just uninteresting across the board. One of them Sam Farron's foreman made it too obvious he was a villain, and the other two were so forgettable and barely did anything in the episode, barely had any lines, barely contributed anything to the episode, that we don't really get to know these men at all. They're very bland and uninteresting characters outside of costume. Then we have the motive of the episode, which I found to be very repetitive and very lazy. So essentially, Sam Farron's foreman, and Lenny the cook's motive was that they wanted to scare people with the legend of Temuka as kind of like a cover-up as well as a distraction while they stole the cattle. So they were going to they scared people with Temuka to use it as like a cover-up for, you know, like a cover-up story for why the cows are missing. And it would also serve as a distraction while they were doing the act as well. The problem is that stealing cattle is nothing new in Scooby Doo. We've seen this motive before. It's a very repetitive and lazy motive. We don't even know why these men are stealing these cattle, what they're trying to gain, what they're getting out of it. We don't know what they're planning to do with these cows. Are they selling them? Do they want them for some other reason? Like, what's the purpose of stealing the cattle? I just don't know what their end goal is, and it's so vague and doesn't really have much to it that it's kind of like the motive in the last episode where not so much an afterthought, but it just feels very lazy and repetitive. Like they didn't really, it's like the bare bones generic version where they didn't really put much thought or explanation on to why these men were stealing the cattle. So yeah, the motive was very weak, very repetitive, very lazy. We've seen this motive before, and in some cases, I think even done a little bit better. Whereas in this one, they just don't really. It's very bare bones and generic. Like they don't really do much with it to make it unique and different, and it just feels very lazy. And it feels like we've seen this motive before, and it's not adding anything new motive wise or adding a unique perspective to that motive. And we don't know what the end goal of that motive is, so it makes it even worse because we don't know what these men are trying to gain out of stealing these cattle. So yeah, terrible motive. I found the mystery of the episode to be pretty weak, if I'm being honest. It was really due to the answers we received in the episode that made the mystery weak. Because essentially there was there was a potential mystery of what happened to Uncle Matt and what happened to the stolen cattle. But when we get those answers, they're not very satisfying. We learn that the cattle were stolen by another ranch hand, a friend of Uncle Matt's or a neighbor, I don't know, Sam Farron, and we don't know why they were stolen. We don't know what the purpose of it was. It was very vague. And with Uncle Matt, like, he just kind of comes back into the episode and he just says that he was able to free himself, which is good for his character. But because we don't get to see it, it kind of stinks, because I would have liked to maybe see the gang help save him, in some capacity. The fact that, all that happens off screen, like he's gone 1 minute and then he's back the next. Like, it just feels very unsatisfying to me, like which, kind of stinks. It feels like there was a lot of great stuff that happened off screen that we didn't get to see, of Uncle Matt escaping, possibly with his foreman, and getting the sheriff and saving the gang just in time. I did like that Uncle Matt saved the day for them and helped them out of a bind when they captured one of the villains at the end, but the other villain captured them, and then Uncle Matt captured him. So yeah, it's just like the answers just weren't satisfying to me. Like, there was potential for a mystery, but I just don't think they really answered the question satisfyingly. The answers to the questions weren't satisfying enough for me that I wasn't willing to give the mystery a pass. And I was like, this just feels weak. Like, there wasn't more thought put into this. So yeah, pretty weak mystery. Could have been great had they, given us pretty satisfying answers, but they just didn't. I found the clues to be weak in this episode, mainly because there was only one clue in the episode, which was the cowhide costumes that Shaggy and Scooby found in the storeroom. That was it. That was the only clue, and it didn't point towards a suspect. It didn't point towards a motive. It just explained how one of the villains was able to, blend in with the cattle and be a cattle rustler and steal the cattle without being noticed. It just explained one of the costume, like what the costume of the villain was. But that was it. Like, it didn't say who was behind the costume. Like, it didn't give any hints to Sam Farron, although his foreman was quite suspicious that it wasn't surprising at the end. And it didn't give any hints towards the motive of them stealing cattle, although the stealing cattle, that was pretty prevalent early out. I was just wondering, like, if they were going to expand upon it in any way, and they didn't. They just were very bare bones about it. It's just like, yeah, they stole cattle. For what purpose? Who knows? But yeah, there was only one clue in the episode, and it didn't really do much. It didn't really answer anything, and it just explained, like, what one of the villains were wearing. Like, it didn't really explain much outside of that, and it wasn't enough for me. So yeah, the clues were very weak, in my opinion, in this episode. I found there to be no atmosphere in this episode. I really didn't feel any sort of tension or suspense or creepiness or eeriness. I wasn't fearing for the gang's safety. Wasn't on the edge of my seat. Wondering what was gonna happen next. Nothing the villains or the setting or anything else did, really creeped me out or made me feel like any sort of eeriness. The atmosphere just wasn't there, and I just didn't feel any sort of atmosphere whatsoever. And my final negative for the episode is that I found the setting of the episode to be quite dull, if I'm being honest. Like, it was very dull and repetitive. It was just a bunch of ranches and desert landscape in Texas. Texas was a neat idea for a setting, but they didn't really do a good job making it a cool setting for Texas. It was just a bunch of desert landscape where the gang were going around in. It was either that, or they were in two ranches. They were either at Uncle Matt's ranch, or they were at Sam Farron's ranch, or they were at the ancient village in the cliff, in the cliffside. But none of these settings provided, any sort of uniqueness or freshness. It was not unique or fresh in any sort of way. They were not intriguing settings. They just felt repetitive because we kept seeing a lot of the same thing, and it was very dull for that reason, because it's just like, we've seen ranches and desert landscapes before in Scooby Doo. Heck, we've even seen ancient villages in cliff sides before. in Decoy for a Dog Napper, it was literally, it feels somewhat similar to Decoy for a Dog Napper in some respects, with the desert landscape and the cliffside dwelling, village in the cliffside. So yeah, the setting was not unique or original. It wasn't fresh or interesting in any sort of way. It was just very dull and something that we've seen before. And, it just was the same shit again, but not in a good way. It didn't really add anything. It wasn't a setting that was improved upon, or a setting that added any sort of variety or uniqueness. It was just the same bunch of ranches and desert landscape that we kept seeing. So yeah, I just didn't really vibe with the setting of this episode. It was just too plain for my taste. Very boring, very bland, very repetitive. Just not one of the better settings of the episode for me. Overall, guys, I personally would not recommend this episode to fans and newcomers of the show. While it was fun getting to see one of the gang's family members, and I do like when that happens, I really love seeing more of the gang's family members, and I did like seeing Daphne's uncle in this episode, I just didn't really vibe with anything else in the episode. There was a lot of issues with it, and it was mainly due to the fact that they were either too bare bones with things and generic and didn't really give enough information to you and didn't really expand upon things, or they just felt repetitive and lazy and felt like we've seen this before in other episodes and other series, and it's just like, can we please try to be a little bit more creative? I know we're gonna, I get it, there's gonna be a point where we're gonna hit a wall and we're gonna be like, we've seen everything in Scooby Doo. Like I said before, I don't mind when stuff is repeated in Scooby-Doo. I know that's going to happen. It's part of a franchise. When you've used everything, you're going to be reusing stuff you've seen before. I just think, if you're going to reuse something, try to make it somewhat interesting or unique. Try to add some flavor to it. However little flavor you can add to it would really help it, because it can make it such a good aspect of the episode. But by just doing the same thing again from a previous episode of a previous show, or a previous episode in this show, it just kind of feels like you're being lazy, and it's like, let's just churn out another episode. Let's get this done. Let's meet this deadline. It just not a lot of heart was put into a lot of these aspects. And yeah, I just think this is one of the weaker episodes. We've been on a streak of pretty weak episodes, and maybe we'll end that hopefully in the next episode. But as far as this episode is concerned, this is another weak episode for me. Not one of the worst episodes I've seen in the series, but certainly one of the more weaker episodes of the series. Like I said, loved seeing a family member of the gangs. I love seeing another one of Daphne's uncles. But again, that was not enough for me to save it, because the elements surrounding that just were not enough for me. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the review. Please give a like if you did. Comment down below your thoughts on the episode. Do you like this episode? Do you think I'm being harsh on it? Are there more good aspects to it that you see that I don't see? Do you hate this episode like me? I'd be interested in that as well. Are you like me? Do you consider it one of the weaker episodes of the series? Do you think, there's more problems with it? That maybe I didn't bring up? Or are you somewhere in the middle where you think it's okay and average, but it's not good or bad? I'm curious for your thoughts, so let me know. And subscribe for more Scooby-Doo content like this, or if you're just interested in any of my other content, obviously I'll have more Scooby-Doo content on the way. This is a Scooby-focused channel, so we'll have more reviews of the Scooby Doo Show. Hopefully we'll get, the gameplay of Scooby Doo Mystery Mayhem back up and running. I just gotta fix the technical issues with that. It's taking longer than I expected, so hopefully that'll get fixed. And of course, I have a comic book issue review coming up as well. And I'm also working on a big project on why the new Scooby Doo movies is an underrated show. So that will come very soon down the line. But yeah, I have a lot of stuff in the pipeline in the works, so plenty of Scooby content on the way, plenty of wealth of material to talk about. And if you love all things Scooby-Doo and you love talking about Scooby-Doo, come join the channel and have discussions with me. And let's talk about these individual episodes and movies and video games and books, and talk about why they're good or why they're bad or average. Let's have some fun discussions about it. Let's talk about our favorite, mystery solving group. In my next video, I will continue my reviews of the Scooby Doo Show with a review of Season 1, Episode 12 of the Scooby Doo Show, titled There's a Demon Shark in the Foggy Dark. An episode that I actually haven't seen in quite a while, so I don't have high expectations going into it. Especially with how the episodes have been lately, and because I haven't seen this episode in a while, I'm very, I have low expectations going into this. I'm not really sure what to expect. Hopefully it'll be a hidden gem, and hopefully will actually be better than I remember it. But who knows? We'll see. So yeah, if you want to know my thoughts on Season 1, Episode 12 of the Scooby Doo Show, then come join me next time. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as always, peace out.
We got it all together for a brand new show. Scooby Doo is here again away.